because this fear has hindered people from making progress, from taking action towards their goals, from getting from this point to another, from making tough decisions in life. This fear of failure has made many people die with their full potential without having tapped into it. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. This is Oak Mama's channel where everyone gets better. If it's your first time here, welcome again, and please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so that you'll always get new videos when they come. Okay, so on this channel we talk about self-development, personal growth. We talk about also parenting tips to raise and to nurture children in the best way possible, to make them leaders of the future, to make them people of character and of integrity. And so if that is what you're interested in, come and let's walk together. The last time we were together, in the last video, I talked about 8 hindrances to our progress, and it received some good response, and many of you can identify with any one of those hindrances that we talked about. And so, as I had promised, I promised to tackle each one of these hindrances one by one. And so today we are starting with the first one, which is fear. So welcome, come on board, and I believe that this video will be of great benefit to your life. Guys, today we are talking about fear, and many people have described fear as false evidence appearing real. And I believe this is true. I agree with it, and we'll come to see why as we go along. Okay, so I've divided fear into 5 types of fear, and we'll be looking at each of these during the weeks to come. And the first one is the fear of failure. The second one is the fear of the future, or the fear of the unknown. The third one is the fear of death. The fourth one, the fear of success. And the fifth one is the fear of people. And we'll be looking at each one of these fears and how we can deal with them so that we can begin to make that so desired progress we have or we desire in our lives. Okay? And today we are going to look at the fear of failure. So, have you ever been maybe in your organization, you're working with a team, and an opportunity comes forth, and anyone is welcome to try it, and it has a great reward? And you looked at that opportunity and you felt like, yes, this seems like something I'd like to try. It seems like something that can take me to the next level. But you began to get some doubts in your mind concerning it. And finally, you just decided, maybe I can do this. I'll just not try it. Or to bring it closer home, I'm sure all of us have been students at one point or another. And sometimes the lecturer or the teacher will ask a question in class. And some of us might have the answer. Actually, at some point, I know you had the answer, but maybe in your mind, you're thinking, um, maybe my answer is not right. So what if I say the wrong answer? And many of us have experienced this. And this is an example of the fear of failure. Okay? So let's see what are the causes of this kind of fear. Because this fear has hindered people from making progress, from taking action towards their goals, from getting from this point to another, from making tough decisions in life. This fear of failure has made many people die with their full potential without having tapped into it. So let's look at what are the causes of this fear. So, guys, what are the causes of this fear of failure that so many of us, including me, experience? So, one of the main causes is having the wrong mindset about failure. Okay? So many people think that when I fail once, when I fail twice, when I fail maybe even 3 times, that I become labeled a failure. Okay? And that is a wrong mindset. And it continues to cultivate that fear of failure within us. The other wrong mindset that we often carry is that fear is the end of the road. Okay? So many people think that maybe when I fail at this test, maybe when I fail at a certain conversation or a certain friendship has ended, that's the end of me. Many people actually carry that mindset, and it really causes them to be afraid of failing. Okay? So another cause, the second cause, is some failures are actually too expensive. Sometimes when we think about the decisions we have to make, we keep on thinking, I cannot afford to make a mistake in this. For example, maybe in choosing a spouse, for example, in choosing a course that you're going to study, for example, in choosing how to invest your money. Some of these things we feel like I will lose too much if I make the wrong decision, and that causes us to fear failure. Okay? The third reason, or the third cause of fear of failure, is because sometimes we are not willing, or we are not ready to put the necessary effort required to attain that success that we envision. Okay, so probably there's a task ahead of us, there's a project ahead of us, and we are thinking, I'd really like to achieve that. But sometimes we are afraid, or subconsciously we don't want to put that effort to go between the I see that goal and I'm here. So what is the in between, for example, sometimes there's a lot of research that needs to be done about maybe an investment you want to make, or even a life partner, or even a school that you want to go to. Whatever decision you need to make, we always have to do our research. We have to get to ask ourselves questions like, what do I need for this? What is involved in this? Who can help me out in this kind of thing? So sometimes we are afraid of making that effort to get the intricate details. And so it continues to marinate that fear of failing in that thing if we actually start it, because it's a definite, if we start it without doing all those things, it's a very good recipe for failure. Okay, so sometimes we sabotage ourselves in that way. And number four is the fear of people. So many times we're asking ourselves, if I do, like I ask myself, if I do my video in this way, what will they say? What will they think? If I choose this person to marry, if I do this, if I choose to live here, if I choose to drive this car, what will people think about me? And that exacerbates that fear of failing. Okay? Let's also look at two things that promote that fear of failure. Many people, as they were growing up, or even now, wherever they are, they live in an environment, or they're surrounded by people who are very critical or unsupportive to their decisions. And such kind of an environment, parents who are too critical upon their children, or maybe spouses as well, or whoever is around you that is sometimes too critical, can bring about this fear of failure. Okay. Number two thing that promotes fear of failure is traumatic events in the past. So sometimes, probably, maybe you were in school or at work doing your a presentation somewhere, and you faulted and it turned out badly. Or maybe you went to some audition somewhere, like I did one day, and it was terrible, and you decided that from then on, subconsciously, you felt like, I'll not try it again. I cannot bear that embarrassment again. Okay? So those are two things that promote, and by promoting, I mean that fuel this fear of failure. Okay? So the next thing we'll look at is how does a person who fears failure look like? And as I'm making this video, I must tell you, I have suffered this kind of thing. I make it not because I don't have this fear at any time, but because this is something I also have to fight. And I hope as we go on that somebody will be able to overcome this, and somebody will learn to fight this, even as I do every day. So, how does a person who suffers fear of failure um, respond, or how does that person behave? And one of the ways that you can tell that I have fear of failure is by being reluctant to change, being reluctant to try new things or to try challenging things. You can actually ask yourself, is this reluctance a sign of fear of failure? Number two, sometimes when you're faced with tasks at hand, you decide that this is too much for me to handle. I'll do it tomorrow, and you begin the cycle of postponing. So postponing tasks, postponing things that you have to do because you're afraid to try it, you're afraid to start it, could be a sign that you have fear of failure. The number three sign that you could look for is that sometimes people with fear of failure have a lot of negative self-talk, and your thoughts. You want to do something, you're trying to do a project you're working on, or you want to make a friendship, you want to do something specific, but in your mind just keeps telling you you don't have that capacity, you're not able to do that, so why even try? You feel like, I can never be a leader, I can never make it in that exam even if I try, so let me not actually try. I can never be a good mother or a good parent or a good student, whatever it is. But those negative self thoughts keep on coming to someone with that kind of fear. So, the further you can tell that I might be having fear of failure is perfectionism. And perfectionism means that you only want to try the things that you know you're very good at, and anything else that you know you're not good at, you're not even willing to try at all because of the possibility of failing. So you only want to do the things that you're sure will turn out perfectly. There is even no room for less than perfect. And so, another thing that also results from that fear of failure and is a characteristic is avoiding responsibility. So you find that people who sometimes, probably now after they have failed, they want to blame everybody else but themselves for that failure. Could be a sign that you're suffering from fear of failure. Okay, so let's go on to the next step. So, guys, how do we overcome this fear of failure? Okay, and of course, by looking at the causes of the fear of failure, solving this problem is by identifying the causes which we have done and seeing how to deal with those causes. Okay, so the number one thing that we have to do to deal with this fear of failure is to change our mindsets. Okay, so I'll say some things that we have to remember. Anyone who suffers from this fear, you have to remind yourself this, that failing at something does not make you a failure. Okay, it does not make you a failure. Branding yourself a failure just because you have failed a test, or because you did not do the right thing at the right time, at some point you made a mistake, it doesn't make you a failure. It just means you failed at that point, but you can succeed if you choose to at another point. The second thing we need to change in our minds is thinking that failure is an end in itself. It is not. Failure is just part of the process of learning the ropes of how to do something so that we can succeed in the end. Actually, failure is a bridge to success, but it all depends on what you make it. Okay, so those are the two main things I want to change. I want us to change in our mindsets. And number three in our mindset change is that we have to speak positive thoughts to ourselves. If we keep putting down ourselves, if I keep telling myself, oh, I didn't make choose the right outfit in the last occasion I went to, so I'm not fashionable, definitely I'll not make the right choices in future. But if I tell myself, oh, maybe I made that mistake, or I didn't do enough research in that project, I didn't do this at that time, it was a mistake, but I can do it different this time. That will help us deal with that fear of failure. Okay, so that's one main thing we need to do, is to change our minds. Okay, so number two, we must be willing to make a plan, or we must be willing to do the work. Okay, so someone said, and rightly so, that not having a plan is planning to fail. Okay, not having a plan is planning to fail. And we must learn to plan. If it's a project that we are envisioning, and or there's something we are planning to do, we can actually start to break it down. Breaking it down helps us to see the nitty gritties, and helps us to actually realize, maybe actually I have three of the things I need to for the project to take off. Probably I know two people who can help me in this thing. But if we look at it generally without actually starting to plan, we'll always have this fear that if I just go into it without a plan, I'll fail, which is the truth. But to deal with that fear, we have to do our best to plan. Planning also helps us to try and evaluate what will be the worst case scenario. If things don't go the right way, if maybe this happens and this happens, what's the worst that can happen? And it helps to deal with that fear of the unknown, because fear of the unknown really causes this fear of failure. So let's try our best when we have something at hand. For example, as a YouTuber making a video, planning for the video, planning everything out is helpful to me. For example, for you, if probably you're planning to do a project, you can consult people who've done it before. These days, there's so much information about what you need, the kind of materials you need to do the project, where you can get help, how you can get services, all that, and that will help to deal with that fear. The third thing we can do to deal with this fear of failure is to seek the Lord's will. Okay? All of us have decisions to make in our lives, and many a times we are at a crossroads. Both decisions at hand seem right, but not each one of them is perfect, and we want the best. Do you know that God is the only one who knows what is right and good and perfect for you? Why? Because He made you, He made me, He made each one of His creation on earth. He has a perfect will, He has a perfect plan and purpose for each one of us. So many times we live our lives, we are afraid to take the next step because we are afraid we'll fail. And sometimes we are afraid we'll fail because we are not even sure, is this where I should be? Is this what I should be doing in this season of my life? Am I in the right place? What am I even doing? But seeking to know what the Lord will have you do at that moment, at that point, can help you make better decisions, can help you deal with this fear of starting something. Because if you know that it's His will, you will definitely have the confidence to go in. But if you also know it's not His will, it can help you decide, maybe not this one, but this other one. Okay? And definitely in the videos to come in the future, I'll also talk about how can we seek God's will, because many people are like, does God even speak? Flo, what do you mean by seeking God's will? Which God is this in the first place? I'm talking about the God of the Bible. And in this future videos, I'll talk about how can we seek God's will. Does God even speak to people? Does God even care about the small decisions we make? Yes, He does. And we'll talk about this in the future videos, okay? So The fourth step, and before I even go to the fourth one, let me just say that seeking the Lord's will, we can do this in prayer. Sometimes we might have a decision we need to make. It's always fine, it's great if you can actually just ask God, which way do I go? Is it this way or the other way? And I know that He responds. Okay, so we'll try it and we'll see. And one remedy to any kind of psychological or emotional challenges is always to speak it out. Okay, so sometimes the fear of failure could feel embarrassing, but it's good if you can find someone to confide in and share. If it's your spouse, you can tell them, I feel this way and that way. If it's a close friend whom you trust, you can tell them, I want to do this, but I feel afraid to try it. And I believe if they're a good friend, they'll speak the truth to you. The best of all, you can always talk to God. For example, if I'm afraid, probably there's no one even to share with. The best first person to share it with is always the Lord. So try these four things, and I know in this life that fear of failure keeps showing up, but with these four items we can keep fighting and fighting it so that we can make progress in our lives. Okay, and the fifth point that I didn't say is we have to overcome the fear of people. Okay, and for the fear of people, I'll talk about in the next video, so stay tuned. Hit that notification bell where we'll be sure to deal with this fear of people. What are the causes? Where does it come from? How do we portray ourselves if we have this fear, which also leads to fear of failure, and how can we deal with it? Okay, talking of an example of someone who has failed, but his failures did not define him. Why can we tell that? Because he's one of the greatest success stories in history. And we're talking about Abraham Lincoln. He's arguably the greatest president that the United States has ever had. Okay? But this guy, he failed in a number of times. He faced many setbacks. He lost his job at some point as the position of state legislature. He had a failed business. He lost his sweetheart. Okay, he lost a contest to be speaker. He lost even when he contested to be in the Senate, and he also suffered a nervous breakdown at some point. You can imagine facing all those kind of failures. You feel like, rejection and all that, but his failings did not make him a failure. It did not define him as a failure. Instead, he used it as a bridge to his success as the greatest president that America has ever had. I'll leave you with a quote from Winston Churchill that says, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Success consists of going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. Of course, this means if you're doing things right, if you're trying to make your plan, if you're trying to do your research well, but still have failed, but acknowledging your mistake, acknowledging probably it was beyond your circumstances and things failed, but continuing with that enthusiasm is what is success. So thank you so much. If you have followed along up to this point in this video, I'm so grateful. I pray that it has been of great help to you, and if it has, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and also make sure you share this video widely so that someone can get helped today. And I'll be very glad to see your comments and to hear what maybe you've learned from this video, or at an additional point maybe you have that others can pick from it. I'll be glad to see that in the comment section below. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Till the next video. Bye bye.